Hello, and welcome to Tech Latest by Nikkei Asia, where we bring you the freshest updates from the technology sector in Asia. Every episode, one of our reporters from the region will be filling us in on the tech news on their radar, from semiconductors in China, to space travel in Japan, to startups in Indonesia. From Nikkei Asia's Tokyo headquarters, I'm Alice French. In this episode, I'm talking to Ryohtaroh Satoh, one of our correspondents in Tokyo, about China's impending export restrictions on graphite and what they could mean for the electric car industry. Hi, Ryohtaroh. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Hi, Alice. Thanks for having me.
So one of your main focuses as a reporter is EV batteries, specifically the materials that are used to make them. And as December approaches next month, I understand that you've got your eye on some export restrictions that China is planning to impose that could have a significant impact on EV battery makers. Why might a curb on Chinese graphite exports spell disaster for such manufacturers?
Right. So industry people are pretty worried about this potential restriction, which is due to start in December. There will be changes to the exporting procedures so that you need an extra permission from the Chinese regulatory office to import the material from China. Graphite is one of the major materials used in EV batteries. More specifically, it's used in anodes, a negatively charged portion of the battery. It's almost impossible to produce EV batteries without Chinese graphite, with both production and processing companies based in China. As one Japanese industry source estimated, if you only count battery-grade graphite, it's almost 100% from China.
Right, so why has China decided to make it harder for graphite producers to export? What's the Chinese government's goal here?
So China's move to place stricter rules on export came after the update announcement by the United States to control shipments of advanced computing integrated circuits, which can be used to produce semiconductors. Although we can't say for sure, you could say that China's move was a tit-for-tat retaliation against the US. Graphite is one of the biggest lead materials in electric vehicles, more than lithium or cobalt, which is also have high Chinese dependence. And its policies probably stems from a similar logic with the United States, who is trying to cut China off the semiconductor supply chain by targeting areas where Western companies have high market share, which is seen as a choke point in a supply chain.
Okay, so how has the EV battery industry responded to the news about these graphite export controls so far? And in particular in Japan, which is what you focus on, is there anything that Japanese companies can do at this point?
To be honest, there's not much you can do in a few months. The announcement came in October. Japanese companies are trying to increase their stockpile and move as much graphite as they can to factories outside China before the restriction come into force. And some South Korean companies were reported to accelerate their plans to source some of the graphite domestically, which can soften the damage after the restriction if they came into force. The companies are aware of Chinese risk for some time. For example, Panasonic Energy, a battery supplier to Tesla in North America, announced their partnership with a Canadian company in 2022 to potentially supply battery-grade graphite in the future. But again, these measures will take some time to substantially substitute Chinese graphite.
Okay, so there are definitely a lot of different aspects to this story, and it seems like it could be quite some time before we really see the knock-on effects on the battery industry. But as a reporter that regularly covers that industry, do you have any personal predictions as to how the whole thing will play out? What kind of concerns are you hearing from industry experts and analysts?
Right. If China completely stops exports of graphite, it will be a huge impact on the EV supply chain in countries like Japan and South Korea. Some battery factories would be forced to stop their production for some time. From a different angle, if Western companies were unable to use the cheap Chinese material for batteries, this could block battery prices from going down, which will be another hurdle for the electrification of cars. But people in the industry doubt that China will go that far. Limiting graphite export will also affect Chinese mineral markets and will lead to more companies searching for alternative mines outside China, which will be a damage to Chinese mining and processing industry in the long run. Japan and China recently agreed on a bilateral framework to discuss export controls, So we should keep an eye on the diplomatic developments as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ryohtaroh, for giving us that rundown. And we should note that these export controls are due to come into effect on December the 1st. So I'm sure that you and our other reporters will be covering that a lot at the time. I hope that we can get you back on again soon for some more updates.
Thank you, Alice. Hope to do good reporting so I can come back again soon.
That's all for this episode. You can read more of Ryohtaroh's reporting, along with a host of other stories about Asia's tech industry, on Nikkei Asia's website, asia.nikkei.com. Some top picks from our tech section this week include a story about how Microsoft has started developing its own in-house semiconductors, and the latest on the effort to clean up space junk orbiting the Earth. If you like what you hear, why not subscribe to our weekly Tech Asia newsletter, which will be delivered to your inbox every Thursday. There's a link to sign up in the show notes. And whilst we still have you, if you're enjoying Tech Latest and would like to support us, please do give us a follow on whichever podcast platform you use. We also really appreciate any reviews you can leave, as these help new listeners to find our episodes. Thank you, and check back in next time for more updates on the tech trends that matter.